Welcome to Becoming the GC, the podcast that dives deep into the journeys of general counsels and chief legal officers, uncovering the insights and strategies that help define their success. Hosted by Joe Schul, founder of Inside Counsel Academy. We share real-life stories and practical advice from successful GCs, guiding you on your journey to the top. Tune in and discover what it takes to become the exceptional legal leader your organization needs.
Joe Schul here. Today we spoke with Christy Crase. We had a great conversation about her career, and I identified with so many of the things she has to say, as I'm sure you will too. Stay with me to the end where I'll share my key takeaways from the episode. This show is sponsored by Inside Counsel Academy, where in-house counsel go to elevate their careers while enhancing their lives, and also by General Counsel West, a law firm that supports GCs of healthcare companies and their teams with an inside counsel mindset. Today's guest is Christy Crase. Christy is the Chief Legal Officer for Professional Case Management and PCM Trials. Professional Case Management is the nation's premier home care provider for nuclear weapons and uranium workers suffering from chronic illnesses contracted in the course of their employment. PCM Trials brings research nursing services to the homes of clinical trial participants worldwide who are enrolled in pharmaceutical and medical device research studies. They recently completed an acquisition of Invaluable Research, which is a scalable network of clinical trial sites strategically located in underrepresented communities to engage a diverse patient demographic. Christy lives in Colorado and loves outdoor sports and her beautiful family. Christy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe. Glad to be here.
Okay, great. I want to start out back at your first lawyer job doing M&A work at Jones Day. What was that experience like?
Wow, intense. It was the prototypical, the name of the company, Jones Day, night, holidays, weekends, that type of thing. Being at the printer around the clock. But it was also an amazing environment to learn how to be a lawyer. Just how to put together documents, how to respond to partners, how to see the way everything comes together, the training that they gave us. But it was intense. It was an intense environment.
Where were you located at? Which office were you in?
The Dallas office.
Okay. Yeah. And did you know at that time that you'd eventually want to move in-house?
I did. I started thinking about in-house way back in law school. When I did my summer internships, one internship was 6 weeks at Jones Day. The other one was in-house at a development bank in Chicago. I'd come to know the development bank before I ever went to law school. I did economic development in communities, and we got to know the development bank, and their in-house lawyer brought me in for one of the summers. And it was then just watching him and how he was such a key factor in not only the business strategy, but the values, the integrity, just how the whole company looked at him and came to him for just big problems. He was always involved. So I knew before, even when I went to the firms, that eventually I was working towards going in-house.
Yeah, wow. Having had some insight, because a lot of people don't really get insight to what in-house life is like when they're still an associate at a law firm. Do you think that helped you in your work?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Because I thought I got really spoiled at the law firm, right? You have, back in those days, you'd mark up agreement, put it into, the typing center that would turn it around, have it on your chair the next day. And you had all these resources. You could go to the library for everything. Being in-house, it was just you and your computer. You didn't have access to Westlaw. You didn't have access to this. You didn't have, and so, yeah, I think I had a really clear vision going in-house, the difference between that and firm life. It was big.
It's so funny you mentioned, what we called the word processing group, because sometimes you'd put it in and wait for it to come back the next morning. Other times you're standing over their shoulder trying to hurry them along.
Gotta get it. Yes. I love the word processing group, but yeah.
That's great. So tell me then how it came about that you moved from the law firm to in-house.
So we left Dallas after my first daughter was born to be closer to family, come back to Colorado, and was at another firm. And it was when I was on maternity leave, actually, with my second daughter. I got a call from a partner at the first law firm, Jones Day, and I was like, oh God, he's probably calling me. Like, what did I do that 3 and 4 years later I screwed up or something? And he was just one of those, partners that never gave you an idea of how he thought about your work or what. But he said, I've got a client in Colorado and they're looking for in-house counsel. And I can't think of anyone better. And it was such a, oh my gosh, really? And then I went to meet with the general counsel and at the company, and we hit it off right away. So that's when the move was made. Needless to say, I came back to the firm that I was at after maternity leave and packed up everything and left. It was a little kind of an uncomfortable situation going on maternity leave and not really ever coming back.
Right. And so when you stepped into that role, what from your law firm days do you think helped you the most? And what were some of the new things that you had to learn?
So what helped me the most was a little about what we talked about. Like, that was an engineering construction design. It was a really large company, really complicated contracts, very complicated transactions. And so the law firm had helped me see that. And how to put those things together. It came very second nature to me, just how to put deals together. And it helped me understand just how businesses kind of work, because I've done a lot of due diligence and how HR fits into, to compliance and the business and the strategy. The hardest thing to change, or the things that I had to address and adapt to, was, hey, guess what? It's no longer all about legal and the advice you give anymore. It's a piece of everything. And really, as a lawyer at a big law firm, you're paid to track down everything, make sure it's right, because companies are calling you to make sure that they've looked at everything. You don't have time to do that. And you had to really start evaluating what's the most important. How do you pare it down to the issue? And sometimes I felt like I wasn't giving like the full complete answer, but it was like you had to adjust to understanding what the risk was with the company. And it wasn't just about here, line such and such, verse so and so, subsection Romanet 4 was where the answer is. Like, they don't care about that. They're like, what's the answer? What's the big idea? And so really, just getting a better business mentality. The business acumen piece of how does all of this fit into what they're trying to do.
And did that come about through more reps, or did you do anything to accelerate that, or how did that grow?
Gosh, it's still growing, right? It's experience. It's the school of hard knocks. When I had a couple of really great business people say, I know you're trying really hard, but this is really what I need. It came from, I was really fortunate at that company. The CEO was a lawyer. And so just the perspective he brought and the rigor that he brought, like every time we did a huge infrastructure contract, we had to go, and there was a matrix of like 10 things we had to brief, and like, where do we end up? And so it really quickly helped me focus on this is what is important in their mind. Whether or not I got the choice of law is important to me. And so, it was really learning about what was important, and then how to not only just talk about what was important, but where we ended and what we gave up and why on balance we got the better thing. And so that it was a lot through a business person who also understood the legal aspect and kind of framing that up for us. It was through that process. And then, reps years later, you still fall at times, and then you gotta, all right, here we go. We'll do it again.
Right on, right on. When did you
Do it
make the
again.
transition into healthcare?
Around 2008, the engineering company that I was at, engineering and design company, was purchased. And I began to see my role get pigeonholed a little bit into just really doing certain things. And an opportunity came up, and I went and looked at, this was a med device company, and went and looked at it. And it felt like finally coming back together. I had started undergrad as, going pre-med, going pre-dental. And
Oh, you
I came,
did?
I
didn't
know,
know
I came
that.
from a family, I came from a family of, dentists and doctors. And so it kind of brought a lot together for me. And I just liked where healthcare was going. And and so I moved to the medical device company. And it was just one of those things that was one of kind of the hardest decisions, because I had a great company where I was, and it was a smaller, PE backed company that I knew was just going to be, oh, but it was the mission, kind of being able to really feel like you were touching people. It was cool in the engineering company driving by something and saying, we helped build that. But this was people, and it was getting into that aspect of it. Yeah. So
Right.
it was the mission.
Okay. All right. Great. So, at what point in your career did you start to have responsibility for areas outside your core legal expertise, say
Hmm.
litigation or
Yeah.
investigations?
It was at the med device company. In that company, I was the deputy GC. It's a small legal department. But no, there was a couple of us, but I was the deputy GC for the whole Americas region. And so all of a sudden, it wasn't just drafting the contracts. I had to work with HR, I had to work with logistics, I had to work with finance. I started sitting in on the Americas region leadership team and seeing all the different pieces that were coming together, starting to look at the regulatory impact. So that's when it became a lot broader. And that's when I started managing other people as well.
Okay. And did you enjoy both aspects of those right away, or did that evolve over time?
No, I enjoyed it. I'm one of these people that's kind of probably a weird lawyer in terms of I love being in some of those strategy and business and leadership meetings, because I really like seeing, how it all comes together. And doing a lot of those leadership development courses and things. I would hear a lot of people say, oh, it's such a waste of time. I'm like, I just learned about, this new model of how people work. And I just always thought it was fascinating. So I enjoyed it pretty much right away. That was one of the things I was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I often say being an in-house lawyer and certainly a general counsel is one of the hardest jobs. But I also think it's one of the best jobs because you
It
get paid to
is.
learn. You're
You do.
constantly learning.
You do. Yeah. Going and learning about all sorts of business stuff that's going on. Exactly.
So how do you, now that you're in the role that you're in, where you're not just a legal advisor, but a business partner and a corporate leader, how do you manage those competing demands?
Sometimes really well, sometimes not as well. No, constantly coming back to what's the business priority, and where's the most risk in a sense for the company. So I'm constantly, I see it as my role is kind of, my job is to protect the company. And so it's trying to come back to where I see those gaps all the time. So there's a lot of things that can be done, but they somehow, for me, have to fit into, this is where the company's going, we're acquiring a business, or we're now setting up this framework for how we're going to expand into these markets. Well, what are the things we haven't looked at? So I've got to kind of continue to focus on those. The hardest part is always with our jobs is there's the urgent, it's coming up, you have to do it, and there's the important, and it's finding time for that important part that is really tough.
Oh man. All right. That's a great segue. I really like to get tactical and practical here and ask you, what does your calendar look like at the start of the day?
My calendar at the start of the day is always, meetings blocked here and there. I tend to look at it on a weekly basis, actually, versus a daily basis. So spend a lot of time looking at the week and trying to figure out, I've got this, all of these things to do. And then plotting out when I'm going to have that focus time to do them. So, because in between the meetings, you've got to, if you don't have something that you're going to do, it's really easy to wander off to email, to wander off to checking, all of everything for everybody else. And so I've got to pull it back to, those blocks of times I've got to focus on certain things.
Yeah. Peter Drucker called it dribs and drabs of time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
together, something like, together when you add them up, even if it's a large number, it's insufficient to get the work done in dribs and drabs.
Yeah.
So
you have to block chunks, big, long chunks.
That's what I was going to ask you. So you manage your calendar on Outlook?
I do.
Okay. And so do you block time at the beginning of the week then when you've sort of sized things up?
My GSD's time.
Mm-hmm. And then when one of those blocks comes up and nothing's happened to cause you to have to move it or put something else over it, and then it happens, how do you start? What's kind of your ritual?
Ooh. It depends on what it is. If it's drafting, I've got to get some background music on low and then just start outlining it and just jump in. That's a great question. I mean, you have to be comfortable, but it's mainly just trying to pull everything in front of me and turn everything else off. I have to turn off, the pop-up messages. I have to turn off the Outlook. Sometimes I'll put my phone away. Yeah.
What about, the Outlook, the notifications are often new email, right?
Right.
But now people text as well.
Right.
So you mentioned your phone. So when do you respond? What's your method for managing those inputs? Emails, texting. When do you get to that?
So usually at the start of the day, it's certain in between those breaks, like you say, when you start, a lot of times I'll get rid of a number of the quick ones. And then when I know I've taken off the low hanging fruit, then I can focus. Of course, there's always those certain people that are, can break through. My kids,
of course.
My husband, and my boss.
Right.
And when those come through, I'll tend to pull yourself out. But for the most part, I usually try to do those before a big block of things because I feel like I've at least gotten through all the ones pretty quickly and then can put it away knowing there's nothing immediate that's looking me in the face, and I can kind of, and even if there was something a lot of times it's just, I'm going to get to this at this time.
Right.
Like yesterday, something came through and a whole bunch of questions kept pinging up because I forgot to turn off my, Outlook little bell. And question. And finally it was I will get to this tomorrow afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think that's the biggest thing. People just want to know that it didn't go in a black box. They don't need the answer right then. They just need to know, I got it. Here's the time I'm going to work on it.
Right.
So,
right. And then you block that time for the next, for when you're going to do it. You put it in a box, put it on the shelf, and you'll pull that down when it's time.
Right.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. So, how much time do you spend in meetings in a given day? Or on average over the course of a week, say? Yeah,
probably. I would say easily 2/3 of my time is spent.
2/3 of your time.
Yeah. Easily.
Yeah. And are you in person or hybrid or?
We're still, there are people that are in person, but I'm still primarily working at home. So it's, click off one meeting, click on to the next.
Yeah.
Click off, click on. Yeah. Which in some ways is more efficient. You lose some of the, the niceties, but yeah.
Does your day start early?
Not too bad. I've always kind of had the philosophy that you can control when you come in. There's a lot of times you can't control when you leave.
I've never heard that, but it's so true.
There's a famous M&A lawyer. Someone told me that. I don't know if they were famous, but yeah, it's like, that's so true. When I'm working international, we acquired one of the acquisitions we did last year was with an international office. And so most of the time, the international stuff will start, but it's usually not before 7:30 or 8. So, at least now during the acquisition, there was a lot of early morning calls. Yeah. And as we start looking at more things international, there may be more of that. But for the most part, it's back down to, an 8 o'clock, 8:30 type of start time. So
what do you do to personally recharge?
I'm a Peloton junkie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I have
in the morning
time.
Or in the evening?
It used to be in the morning until pandemic. I was all my career a workout person. I mean, all the way through up until the pandemic, I was like up at 35, at the gym by 5:30. And that was my time because, again, I could control that. And I can control at the end of the day. It completely flip-flopped. Pandemic and not having young kids at home anymore. And now, because I love doing it, that's what'll get me off the computer, and I'll give myself that time to go do that, then eat. And if I ever have to come back, I will. But yeah, that's my recharge.
Wow, that's super interesting, that transition. I wonder how much it has to do with not having young kids in the house anymore, like pandemic versus that, or combination.
I think that's a big part. They happened at around the same time for me, but I think that's a big part because you're not driving, picking up, doing all that kind of stuff or whatever. So all of a sudden it's like, why am I getting up at 5 a.m? That's silly. I can do it at this time, So yeah, big change for me.
Yeah, I'm still a morning person myself, but I heard some advice recently by somebody who said that they work out at 5 o'clock because they don't want to give their best thinking time to working out because they're not a professional athlete. They're a professional, wasn't a lawyer, but some other kind of knowledge worker. And I thought, that kind of hit home a little bit.
Were you talking about 5 a.m. or 5 p.m.?
Oh, I was saying, they were saying they work out at the end of the day instead of the beginning of the day because they don't want to sacrifice that best thinking time.
There is some of that. I mean, I get a real lull right in the afternoon, and it's just that pick me up. And there's times I notice, like, if I do that, then I'll come back if I have to. You got a lot going on. You come back, and then you're a little more recharged, and you can do it if you have a long day.
Right. Okay, great. Tell me about you've been exposed to so many things. You've learned so much over the course of your career. How do you keep that knowledge so that you're, retaining it and growing from it? I found earlier in my career, I did very little self-reflection. Everything was happening so fast. Yeah. And if I could give advice to my younger self, it would be like keeping a journal or something to be able to draw upon so you're not missing out on those lessons as they're happening. Is that anything that you've thought about or done anything about?
Yeah. I have kept a journal at different times. It seems like it's fits and starts. But there's a lot to be said about that. We, as a company, have been doing, executive coaching and keeping that time apart. And then that self-reflection is so important because it's like, why does that trigger me so bad? Well, this and that. And when you start peeling it back, then you can start addressing it. So, yeah, definitely holding time for that is super important, I think. Yeah.
One question that comes up often for people earlier in their career is around executive presence, right? Mm-hmm. This somewhat elusive notion of executive presence. What does executive presence mean to you, and how do you advise people who are looking to get more of it?
Yeah. I guess a couple things come to mind. The first one is being your authentic self. I once took this speaking course, and I'm high energy, right? I bounce around, I talk with my hands, I do a lot. And I kept trying to stand there and be really, and they're like, your energy, it's great, use it. And so I was like, okay, some people may not like it. And I pop up and start writing all over the board or whatever. But it was, you know, so I think I see that it's being authentic. It's when I connect with people the most, leaders particularly. And I guess the other thing is when I think of executive presence, I think of people who are thoughtful and calm, particularly in our field, because people come in and they're like, guess what just came in the door, this type of loss. And it's like, okay. And kind of if you fly off, they fly off as well. So I think it's the people who are able to kind of be calm and centered and then be really thoughtful. Those are the words that come to my mind when I think of executive presence, I guess.
Yeah, great. Yeah. I mean, I think it's easier as you gain more experience because you can stay calm in those situations because in your mind you think, oh, I've dealt with worse than this.
Exactly.
But
that's all you got.
Maybe you haven't dealt with worse than this. But I think people, when bad things happen, maybe there is too much internalization. Like we're lawyers, so we inherit problems, then we're asked to fix them.
Right.
We're often not the ones that, caused it.
Them. Yes.
And reminding ourselves of that, I think is helpful as well.
Right.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about your job in protecting the organization. We also talked about your job as being a partner to the business and helping them accomplish their objectives. So do you see a tension between those two, or how do you see that?
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of times I say that and then, at times protecting the business may not exactly do what they want to do. I think, so that's the tension where I have come to kind of understand is, all right, but maybe we can do it this way, trying to figure out other ways to do it, really figuring out what's the best way to accomplish the need. So you feel like you have protected the company. So in some ways, my first response is they're at tension, but in a lot of ways they're not. You can, be a advisor and somebody who's helping them get what they want done, but protecting the company at the same time. It just at times involves a little kind of management or helping guide the path and showing what it could look like. Yeah, showing what it could look like in different ways. And this might be the best path to go down.
Great. Speaking about looking, how do you look over the horizon at what might be impacting the business in the future? And especially now that you've, been in this company where the horizon, you've got to look out over different horizons because you're in multiple businesses, you're growing through acquisition, including into some adjacencies that present new risks.
Gosh, a lot of it is just continuing to understand and really get in and understand what the business is and what they're trying to do and where we're going. I learn a ton from our business partners all the time. For example, on the clinical trials side, when we acquired Invaluable, it was a lot about the FDA kind of wanting to get more clinical trials out to more types of people, expanding them. And I didn't know that the FDA had come out. Should I have known? Probably, but that was like, oh, okay, they're out in front of me. I need to understand, get going, and then jump off from there. But it's listening and seeing, what are a lot of the themes are similar, but where do I need to really spend my time? So it's listening to the business where they're trying to go. And then that helps me narrow where there's a lot of focus for me. So it's really kind of, again, understanding the business piece of it as well. And yes, you have to keep up with all the legal theories and the things that are coming along. I rely a lot on my team, who are a lot of specialists, to do that. I spend a lot of time in one-on-ones with them, capturing some of that because they're kind of their experts, and I'm kind of the jack of all trades.
Yeah,
and
that
have
makes
to
sense.
kind of catch it from some of them. Yeah.
Are you somebody who learns through like a visual learner or somebody who learns through other people having conversations, or both, right?
Definitely both. And I'm a very tactical learner. I have to kind of do it and go through it. So it's like I can learn the theories and that kind of thing, but it's totally different when you go through it and actually do it.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like we did all of this international work, and I knew just from doing it, our issues are going to be data privacy and security and employment as we go over. But it wasn't until I was in it that I really like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I kind of knew, but now I really know what it was doing it.
If you could give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Probably two things. One, I'm still working on listening a lot better in terms of what problem are we really trying to solve. I think as a young lawyer, you're just, here's the issue. I got to go off and show everybody I've got the right answer. And it's what's the issue you're really trying to solve? So it's listening and asking a lot more questions. And I don't know how you get over this, but not feeling, I had a feeling like, if I ask too many questions, they're going to think, why do we hire her? But it's like, okay, really, listening to understand. And then probably the second thing, at least for me, is appreciating at a much younger or earlier stage of my career, the value that I bring to the management table. Yeah. I think just having that kind of confidence and awareness probably would have helped me, or younger people a lot earlier in my career. Yeah.
Great. What are you looking forward to?
What I'm looking forward to? Gosh, from a professional side, from a business side, really looking forward to, let me back up. When I came to this company, the reason I wanted to do this was because they didn't have a legal department, and I wanted to create a sustainable department that could go on. And I'm starting to see that come together. And then with the company as a whole, we've added all these pieces, and we're in a really painful part of organizing chaos. So just seeing, I think I'm really looking forward to seeing how all of this comes together. We're trying to really take off in an area, and seeing how all these pieces can come together to build what the initial vision was. And right now we're in it, so it's kind of messy. So I'm looking forward to seeing us really become, on the clinical trial side, this company that we've been envisioning. And I think we can do it, but it's not going to be easy. It's going to be messy. It's going to be really messy in between.
Excellent. Well, Christy, I love your style, and I learned so much from this conversation. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you would want to pass along to folks listening?
Gosh, I don't think so. I mean, I feel like I've had a really great career, and it's kind of fun to be on the side of it and to start having other people come in and do some of the same things and watching them grow too. So yeah, I think for me, being a general counsel is really cool, just to marry kind of that legal and business side of it. And it's really satisfying in a lot of ways. You get to see a lot of cool stuff. So
great. Well, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed our time with Christy. I know I did. A few key things I'll take from this episode are: Christy was already thinking about being an in-house lawyer when she was still in law school. And she did this because she was able to observe an in-house lawyer during a summer internship at a bank, and how he was such a key factor in the business strategy and beyond. And she's yet another get stuff done adherent and uses time blocking. I love that. Okay, until next time, this is Joe Scholl. For more tips on accelerating your path to becoming a world-class general counsel, visit InsideCounselAcademy.com and connect with me directly on LinkedIn.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming the GC. Whether you're preparing for the GC role or looking to sharpen your skills as a sitting general counsel, we hope this episode offered valuable insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Explore more resources and join our community at InsideCounselAcademy.com. Please tune in next time for more insights and inspiring stories from successful legal leaders.